And if you heard all of what our trustees said before about things being out of order and there being no law and order, I want you to think for a minute that what we know about two little girls on a bus in Prosper ISD for an entire year is the tip of an iceberg that we are still discovering, we are still investigating. So I'm going to share some information with you about that. This is kind of breaking news. I've not been public about any of this, so when this all starts to get to Prosper ISD, I suppose some interesting things will start to happen. The two little girls are anonymous. The two little girl victims are anonymous. They are known as Janies. Janie Doe 1 and Janie Doe 2. Their parents have a lawsuit against the district for $10 million, and they are separately suing the superintendent. Superintendents by law, Chapter 22.093, are required to notify the TEA if there is sexual misconduct with a student involved, by an employee within 7 business days of being notified. Prosper Superintendent Holly Ferguson never notified the TEA. It says under statute that failure to report under this statute is a state jail felony. A state jail felony is the only thing that can nullify her contract like that. So I hope this shows up somewhere and the rest of the board get a hold of the fact I have the whole data file and I have the entire investigation. But you know what? So do the attorneys for the Janies. And they will not bring this to the DA. So I brought it to another attorney who told me, your DA is compromised. He's also got sexual harassment allegations against him. This is going to be dicey. And I said, you have the whole file. You see the law was broken. I've done several public information requests. There is not a backlog at the TEA that is, keeping them from reporting what has not been reported. This led to an investigation in Collin County where we found more school districts who had more stories that are reported in the news, but those superintendents have never reported to the TEA misconduct reporting portal. And then that spread out across the state. Now there are dozens and dozens of individuals submitting PIRs to the TEA. Now you know where it all started, TEA. Dozens of school districts whose data we have. To date, this is just the beginning. These are all the PIRs that we have to date. The evidence that is in this binder is damning. Damning. Mike Morath needs to lose his job. He is not providing appropriate oversight or enforcement. There are laws on the books for this. There are educators who have abused physically or sexually children who have had their certifications removed, some of them permanently, and they are not on the do not hire registry.
Lots of them.
Pardon my French, but what the hell are we doing to Texas school children? Okay, they are fish in a barrel. So this investigation is ongoing. And I will say this, we have a systemic breakdown and utter failure in not only transparency, also accountability, also oversight, also enforcement. All of these fall squarely on the State Board of Educator Certification, which falls under Commissioner Mike Morath, who falls under Governor Greg Abbott. We are sending children into schools and they are captive victims. And there are sheep and wolves. There are wolves in sheep's clothing. It's a very safe environment, but not for the children, for the perpetrators, because they keep their jobs. I mean, for goodness sake, we have a statewide teacher shortage. We can't let those pedophiles go. What are we doing? What are we doing? So at the very, very least, I'm going to share some stories and testimonies with you of parents who have bravely shared their stories. I have gotten to meet some of these families. I'm not the victim, but I feel victimized every time I read about them and every time I interact with these people, and we all should. All of our hearts should sink until we have a solution to this problem. We cannot allow our children to be victims of adults in taxpayer-funded public schools. Our solution, I'm going to share this before we share some of these testimonies. Right now, we have some language in Ledge Council, thanks to the bravery of staffers in Senator Hall's office. Thank you for being an amazing senator. I'm calling this the Justice for Janies Act. Again, this is just simple enforcement of laws that we already have on the books, but we are calling for a full audit of that misconduct reporting portal, the Do Not Hire registry, how these investigations happen, the timelines, who's responsible. Do you know right now if you get reported for misconduct, let's say that you're actually innocent, you might not get an answer to your investigation for almost 2/3 of a year, 240 days that investigation could sit out there, and a teacher who's not responsible for anything, who maybe has a false claim against them, could have a claim noted on the registry online. And let's say you get arrested for your crime. TEA says, out of our jurisdiction, I guess we'll stop looking into that. Yeah, I can't even tell you. I think we have at least, what do we say, Carrie, 30%? 30% of misconduct reports regarding sex, violence, drugs, and alcohol. These people should have their certifications pulled, and they're not. But there's a lot more. We're just scratching the surface. So the Justice for Janies Act will call for a full audit of the entire system. It will authorize, we will look into the misconduct, the outcomes, investigations, the definitions of all the codes. The audit will produce a report and findings and recommendations for both certified and non-certified employees in a school. It will make fully transparent through a publicly accessible photo database the names, ages, and pictures of the people who are molesting and abusing our children, because they don't show up, believe it or not, on the state sex offender registries. Why is there a separate level of justice for these individuals? Absolutely unacceptable. It has to happen this session. If an adult is accused of misconduct involving a minor student, and they will face immediate termination if a superintendent or a principal tries to conceal this. Right now, it's a state jail felony, but Dr. Holly Ferguson is not in a jumpsuit. And there are other superintendents in this state who belong in jumpsuits, but they're not being held accountable. When an allegation of misconduct is reported, the families of all approximately affected students must be notified within 7 days of the report so that other potential victims may be identified. In Prosper ISD, there are parents who never knew for months and months that their children were exposed to a pedophile and that they may also have been affected by him. A public reporting system will include a website and a toll-free number so that parents, staffers, or anybody can report misconduct if they are concerned about it, if they get an allegation or they want to make a report of one. We have to open up the doors of transparency. This is the most precious asset we have, these young children who are our future. If our children are physically, sexually abused, if they are given drugs, alcohol, if somebody's exposing them to pornography or exposing themselves, these people do not belong working in taxpayer-funded schools. Now I'm going to ask Diana Richards to come up and read a testimony from one parent from Prosper ISD.
Thank you, Eileen. Like she said, my name is Diana Richards, and I'm humbled and honored to get to share this testimony of another fellow Senate District 30 mom. This story is told with permission and told from her perspective and her words. My name is Eileen Frensley. I'm a mom of 4 beautiful children, the last being born in December 2020. As a result, a friend told me that there was a bus route available to my kindergartner so they could go to a school across town for a special program. In January 2021, I made the decision to put my 5-year-old on a school bus route home. I met the driver, a man named Frank. Say the last name for me? Paniagua. He was a very kind man. While the bus and routes seemed to frequently have issues, he seemed to have plausible answers. I failed to question why the bus app went off route, why the app was turned off, why the bus would come home sometimes hours late. There was a stop train. terrible construction, or awful traffic, always seemingly reasonable answers. On August 26, 2022, I received a text message from another bus mom. Did you see this? This was our driver. The news article detailed sexual acts committed every single day of the 2021-22 school year to 2 girls aged 5 and 7. My daughter knew the girls, having been in the same program and riding the bus with the older girl the year prior. I found out that Frank was arrested on May 11, 2022. We hear about it August 26th. He attempted suicide and succumbed to his injuries weeks later in June. According to court documents, he confessed to his crimes every day. He did these acts every day. Sex offenders don't start with offending every day. That led to a crazy amount of officers, officials, lawyers, admin, and appointments. Ultimately, since she didn't know what was happening, she can't testify, and they don't want to ruin her by pushing the issue. The last psychologist told us, maybe she'll remember these repressed memories, maybe she won't. Right now, she's bright, creative, and thriving. Maybe she'll have lasting issues, maybe not. That's something you can work on when or if the issue comes up. You have to learn to be okay with not knowing. How can you be okay with not knowing? Actually, there's no not knowing. After speaking with lawyers, other officials, and reading the court documents, there's no doubt in my mind, this man may not have abused her every day or in a hugely obvious fashion, but I'm convinced he used my daughter to learn what he could get away with, and that no one would call him out. It was after, when he became more brazen and with an older child, that he got caught. If a 7-year-old didn't say anything, even amid adults and a bus video camera, he would not have been caught. Now, I'm the last mom facing a school board that wants to pretend it didn't happen. They made a motion to fully dismiss since they were unaware. Unaware? No adults said anything. No cameras checked. Parents not given details. The few changes weren't made until after September and a huge parent outcry. The superintendent also tried to claim immunity as protected because she's a school official and can't be held liable. So let's forget about the girls that were affected for life, pretend it didn't happen. I was staring holes into board president Drew Wilborn as he read the statement that the private investigation was completed, but they weren't saying anything until they speak to their own lawyers. A few days later, he was arrested for his own sexual improprieties. A close friend filed a FOIA request as the investigation was announced and completed. It revealed 0 documents existed. The school board is out to protect itself. My husband is a teacher within the district. He drives my children to school. He's met with and seen all sorts of administrators, including the superintendent and school principals, yet no one could even pull him aside to mention it. His classroom is right there. His email is easily accessible on the employee list. His phone number is listed on the school catalog. He comes early and stays late, yet it was too much effort for anyone, to tell him his daughter was a victim of a sexual predator. Not even an I'm sorry. So who are they really protecting? It isn't the students, nor the teachers, or the families. I can't believe we need to ask for a bill for district officials to do the right thing. It costs over $500 to have my daughter evaluated. We received no resources from the school district to help my child. I lost 133 days between Frank's arrest and the official email from the school informing me my child was on an affected bus. And notice from the school district came 24 days after the news article in the Texas Scorecard was published. Precious time that could have been used to help my daughter was lost because safeguarding the district's reputation was more important than safeguarding my child. I would also like to call on Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton to investigate Prosper ISD School District. Since the public paid for this independent investigation, there needs to be documents somewhere or it didn't happen. We need every ally we can get in the fight to keep our children safe in Texas public schools. and to keep our taxpayer-funded school districts accountable and transparent. Thank you.
Okay, Carrie, I have one more short testimony, but I'm going to have Carrie come up and let you know, she'll take just 1 minute to tell you what we have been doing and how you can help.
You short people. I'm Carrie Moore. I'm the Education Division Leader for County Citizens Defending Freedom in Nueces County. We have been putting on a statewide effort to gather PIRs, public information requests. I'm sure everybody's real familiar with them, but just in case. To get this information, we have the PIR that needs to be filed. If you are not in one of our counties where there is a County Citizens Defending Freedom, we welcome your information as well. We can tell you exactly what to send, how to send it, gather the data, and the issue is we're all sending the exact same PIR and we're getting different information from every county. Nobody has given us the same information. That's why it's important to have the same PIR. So if you do want to get involved in this statewide effort, please come see me or Aileen. This is our binder full of counties, and about 90%, 80 to 90%, I would say, of the offenders that should have a permanent revocation are not on the Do Not Hire registry. There are 5 offenses that the mandatory minimum is a permanent revocation of their certificate. It's not happening, y'all. We have to do something. We need support for this legislation. We need our legislators to hear us and show our support. And if you want to get involved, let me know. Thanks.
Is that phone power up, by the way? Did the phone down there power up? Did it come back? Mary, oh my gosh, my little one's under the table with my phone. The challenge of parenting today. I'm just going to read this last one quickly. This is a devastating story. This parent comes from Anna ISD, which is also in Collin County. This mom has been fighting for her child who has been sexually victimized by school personnel.
And Anna sent us a PIR that said there's nothing to see here.
Yes, Anna's another school district that has nothing to report. Just like Prosper ISD has never used the misconduct reporting portal for anything. Anna ISD
And Lovejoy.
is another one of those schools. Lovejoy ISD, another school district in Collin County that has nothing to report, even though we can find their stories in the media.